Okay, here in part 3, we're gonna take a flying leap all the way back to 1945 or 46. At that time, the grocery chain stores would have sales on every so often. You buy a pound bag of sugar for 10 or 15 cents, limit one per customer. So Mom took me and Robert over to her sister's house, our Aunt Theta, to babysit for us. I don't remember what happened before or what happened after, but here's what I do remember. Aunt Theta took both of us out to a tree in her backyard and tied a rope around us and tied both of us to that tree. Can you believe it? Anyway, after a few minutes, me and Robert started screaming and yelling and hollering and crying just all over the place, and I looked up and I saw Aunt Theta walk out on the back porch. She put her hands on her side of her hips and she said, "Both of you two heathens!" Man, she took off like a bull over there to us, and she was trying to untie those knots, and she couldn't, and she's crying out, "Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord." Oh, yeah. So she runs back in the house, gets a pair of scissors, comes back out there, and she cuts both of us free from that tree, and she takes us inside real quick, puts us in the bathtub, gives us a bath, and then she rubs us down with some sort of oil of some sort. And what had happened, there was an ant bed at right real close to that tree, and me and Robert had disturbed those ants, and they was all over us. Now what we did to that poor woman, I couldn't tell you, but that was a real experience. Okay, I moved quickly to 1947, 1948. Robert and I would take turns working at night with our mom and dad in the janitor business. And Robert got first choice, so he stayed home taking care of our first niece, Sherry Ann. That's our oldest sister's daughter. And the deal was that if Mom came home and found that Sherry Ann was dirty, then Robert would go to work the next night, and I would stay home and babysit Sherry Ann. Well, because Robert went first, it was about a month and a half later before Mom came home and sure enough found Sherry Ann dirty. So now it's my turn to babysit her. Oh man. The first night, Sherry Ann, dirtied her diapers, and I went to change her, and oh man, I got sick. Oh man, the looks and the odor were so terrible. I was going to throw up. I couldn't deal with it. It was terrible. I couldn't believe it. So I closed the diapers back up, and I said, well, I'll change it later. And sure enough, Mom comes home around 9:30, 10 with Robert, and Sherry Ann's dirty. So Mom tells me, well, Roy, you know what the deal is now. You go to work tomorrow night, and Robert stays home. Oh man. So sure enough, next night I go to work, and I'm thinking, well, it won't be too long, and then I get to stay home. But Robert hung in there for at least a month and a half before he would lose his turn. And long short here, the longest I ever stayed and take care of Sherry Ann was about 3 days. I don't know how Robert did it. Okay, we just moved right on into 1952. Me, Robert, and Buddy was walking home one night from a movie, and I think all kids pull this prank at one time or another. Anyway, we had walked by a small In-N-Out hamburger stand, and I think this place had maybe 8 stools, and that was it. And it's about 10 o'clock at night, so we go in, we all order a Coke, and the poor chef that was in there was by himself, and when he turned his back to cook, he was cooking something for himself, I guess. Robert took that sugar bowl and unscrewed the cap, took the salt bottle, and just dumped a whole bunch of salt in there, and put the lid back on it, and then put the salt back, the little salt jar back, and then we finished our Cokes, and we all got up and left, but we didn't. We went to the corner and we were standing there watching, because it had large glass windows there. And a few minutes later, an old guy walks in. You could tell he was kind of tired and scrubby and all that. He sits down and orders a cup of coffee, and when he puts that sugar in there, and he took a big swig of it, he spit it out over the and dropped the cup of the saucer on the floor, and it broke. We thought that was the funniest thing ever. Okay, it's still 1952, and one day, me and Robert sitting in the swings, just, cooling our heels, and Mom walks over, and she sits between both of us, and she says, "Boy, Robert, I want you to promise me something." "Well, yeah, Mom, what's that?" She said, "I want both of you to promise me that you will not take cigarettes from your friends or strangers. Please." Mom, what are you talking about? You're worrying too much. We're not doing anything. We're not going to do anything stupid. Well, just remember this. If you need cigarettes, tell me. I will buy them for you. So we say, "Okay, Mom, we promise we won't take cigarettes from anyone." So I don't know, it's probably a month later or sometime later after that, me, Robert, Buddy, Fredericks, and Huncho, we was walking downtown to the Lowe's Theater to see a movie, and that was a pretty good walk for us. And when the movie let out, we ran out of cigarettes coming back home. So we spent the rest of that trip walking back home, looking in the gutters, picking up cigarette butts that we thought had at least one or two drags left on it. Oh man, you talk about stupid. Okay, we're going to take a short step up to 1953. One of our best friends, Buddy Fredericks, Mom and Dad had divorced, and his mom had moved to Tyler, Texas. And one night, Robert comes to me and says, "Hey, Roy, I'm going to run away from home, and I'm going to go up to Tyler, Texas." I said, "Robert, come on, man, are you kidding or what?" "No, man, I'm not kidding. I'm going to do it tomorrow." "Well, okay, if that's what you want to do, I guess that's it." So anyway, that night he packed his suitcase, puts a couple of shirts, a couple of underwear, some socks, and 3 pair of blue jeans, and he's ready to leave. The next night, he starts hitchhiking to Tyler, Texas. Now, he gets about halfway there, and he's let out in front of a gas station. He goes into a little cafe next to it, and he gets into a fight with another kid there. So the local sheriff comes out, and he steps in the middle of it. Once he finds out what all went down, and when he gets through, he turns and looks at Robert and says, "Okay, son," in effect, he says, "Get out of Dodge before sunup." Can you believe it? So he gets back on the road, starts hitchhiking again, and he catches another ride that gets him about halfway again to Tyler, and he's let out in the middle of nowhere at some crossroads. So he takes his clothes out of his suitcase, and he lays his shirts and his socks and his underwear and his blue jeans out so he can have something to sleep on. And he's using his suitcase for a pillow. So he lays down and goes to sleep, and then right at sunup, this old beat-up stake bed truck and a color guy's driving. He pulls off the road and runs over and says, "Hey, son, wake up, man. You too close to the highway. A car come along here and run over you and kill you deader than a doornail. Where you headed?" So Robert tells him where he's headed. So come on, I'll take you there. So this color guy in this old beat up truck takes him all the way into Tyler, Texas. Life couldn't be finer. Okay, now the next morning after Robert leaves, Mom and Dad, they find out that he's gone. Dad goes halfway ballistic. He's beside himself. And Mom is just in buckets and buckets of tears. She's really heartbroken. And I keep trying to tell Mom and Dad both. I said, "Hey, look, he's just going to Tyler, Texas. He's promised me when he gets there he'll call, and then Mom, I'll let you know how everything's going with him." So 2 days later, I get a call from Robert. "Hey, boy, I'm coming home." "What?" "You just got there, man. What the heck's going on?" "Roy, dare me tell you right now, there ain't no way you're going to ever want to live in this town. This town sucks. How's Mom and Dad right now?" I said, "Hey, Robert, believe me, you're not going to have any problem at all. They're going to be so glad to have you back home. So come on back." So I guess it's about 3 days later, around 9 o'clock at night, there's a knock on the door, and Mom answers the door. Holy cow, what a reunion. Mom and Dad both, they spent about an hour talking to him, but they never, ever gave him any trouble at all, man. They made him feel right at home. But I felt so bad for him because his clothes looked like they had been run through the garbage dump. I mean, it really looked bad. But he was glad to be home, and that was the last time he ever thought about running away from home. Okay, it's still 1953, and one day Robert and I were coming home from school, and we bumped into our brother-in-law, Gene Turrentine. He was home on leave from Korea at the time, and he had on this deep blue suit with red stripes on it. Man, he had this long handlebar mustache, and he looked sharp as a tack. Holy cow, man, what is that? What are you? You know, Gene said, well, boy, I want you to listen to me. He said, as soon as you turn 17, both of you go down and join the Marine Corps, and don't let nobody talk you out of it. You understand? Oh, yeah, man, will we get one of those suits? Oh, you'll get the whole kit and caboodle, believe me. It'll be the best thing you ever did. So that's all me and Robert could ever talk about. We'd tell all our friends, oh man, when we get old enough, we're going to join the Marine Corps. And they'd laugh at us. Okay, I'm going to move right on into 1954. Robert and I was at a party one time, and it got a little out of hand. So the cops show up, and we hadn't yet learned that at times keeping your mouth shut had a better payoff. So anyway, we both smarted off, and as a result, they took us downtown for detention. And when we get down there, we're in a holding area, and it looked like there's half a dozen guys in there that looked like they just crawled out of the gutter. And after a few minutes or so, this detective comes out and says, the Pimento twins? Yeah, that's follow me. So we go into his office and we sit down, and we're looking at him. He's leaned over his desk, and he says, you know, boys, I know all about you Pimentos. I dealt with your brother, your older brother, and now I got to deal with you two. So let me tell you what I'm going to do for you. When you guys turn 17, 18, your mama and your daddy ain't going to be able to save y'all. First chance I get to nab your butts, I'm going to grab you in here, throw you under the jail, and I'm going to throw the key away. You understand that? When he said that, and we both kind of laughed a little bit and says, oh yeah? Well, when we turn 17, we're joining the Marine Corps, so you ain't gonna never get a chance to grab us. And when we said that, he leaned back in his chair. He crossed his hands across his belly, and he got this big grin on his face. And he says, well, boys, I tell you what, I'd like to see that day come. We said, yeah, well, don't worry now, because it's coming. Oh, man. Well, that day came in 1955 on October the 15th, and it was a life-altering experience. Well, the Marine Corps sent Mom and Dad a certificate of acceptance into the Marine Corps, and telling them how proud they should be that their son had made the choices that they had made. And I'm sure Mom and Dad was proud, but I believe they were probably more grateful that Roy and Robert wouldn't be sneaking their car out at night for joyrides. Okay, it did force a detour on both of us from a path with a total dead end onto a path with the enormous opportunities, and we took it. Now, was it fate that led our paths to cross that afternoon, or another hand? And for that, we owe Gene a great debt of gratitude. Okay, I'm going to jump right up to 1957. Robert, Buddy, and me, we're all stationed at Camp Pendleton, California. Robert is stationed at the 1st Recon Battalion at Mainside. Buddy is stationed at Motor Pool at Mainside. Yeah, he's a truck driver. And I'm stationed at Camp Horno with the 2nd Battalion, 1st Marine Division, Fleet Marine Force. And it's about 25 or 30 miles from main side. Now, for some strange twist of fate, Robert and I both radio operators, but we operate different radios. Robert operates a GRC 109, which is a mobile type radio that's usually carried in a Jeep, and it's mostly used for Morse code stuff. I carry a PRC 10, which is a back mounted. I carry it on my back, and it's a pretty nifty little radio. By the time you add all the other gear with it, it gets pretty hefty, but you get used to it. So one time we had division maneuvers, and what that means is every Marine on that base is involved. And we had enemy and friendly forces. It just so happens that Robert's unit was assigned to enemies, and my unit was assigned to the friendly forces. So at some point in the exercise, maybe a week into it, they called a ceasefire so that the enemy forces and the friendly forces could reposition their units. Now, my unit is at the bottom of this hill, and we're fixing to trudge up this fire break, and I'm walking behind my commanding officer, and we get about halfway up, and I look up and I recognize about 3 guys that's in Robert's unit. So I said, man, that's Robert's unit coming down there. I wonder if he's with them. So just as the 2 headquarters groups get ready to pass each other, I glanced over to see if I could see Robert. And I don't see him there, but I do see the captain that is with the unit, with the group there, and I noticed that his mouth drops open and his eyes get really big. But, you know, I was trying to see Robert. I wasn't thinking about him, so I just looked back down at the ground, and I just kept trudging up on the side of that mountain. We found out later that the captain had thought that Robert had infiltrated the enemy's headquarters, and he was very excited about that. Well, of course, later on he learned that it wasn't Robert, and it was so unbelievable to him that he had Robert's gunny sergeant drive all the way over to my unit, pick me up, to drive me all the way back to Robert's unit so that he could see both of us side by side. Oh man, well let me tell you something. When you're dressed in the same uniform, and same boots, same haircut, and the same cover, and you put 2 faces in there that just slightly resemble it, they're going to look really close. The only difference between me and Robert at that time was I wore 2 stripes and Robert wore 4 stripes. Robert's name read Permenter R.E., and on my shirt it read Permenter R.A. It took them guys almost a half hour to finally realize that they were facing 2 twins. Okay, now we'll jump quickly into another event that took place maybe 5 or 6 months later. Every Marine in the Corps has to qualify with the rifle every single year, and it doesn't matter if you're a clerk or a cook. Every year you got to qualify with that M1 rifle. So now it's my turn to qualify, so I'm out on the rifle range, and it's lunchtime. I'm sitting up next to a 6x front wheel leaning on it, and I noticed there's another guy that was sitting about 10-15 feet from me with his legs crossed, and he was eating. And this guy was a Polynesian, and Polynesians, they don't look all that friendly just normally. And I noticed that he kept glancing at me, and after about half a dozen glances, he finally stands up, and when this guy stands up, he don't stop going up. He's at least 6'1" or better, at least 190 plus pounds. This guy's built. And he walks over, and I'm looking at his face, you know, what's going on here? And he don't look happy. He gets in front of me and he said, hey, Permenter. I look, hey, yeah, what's up, Gunny? What are you doing here? What do you mean, Gunny? I'm here to qualify with the rifles. It's my time to qualify. Oh, hand me that. I know every man in my unit by first, middle, and last name, and I made up the qualifying roster this morning myself, and I'm telling you, your name ain't on it. Look, see here? Show me where your name is right here. I looked at that list and I said, well, Gunny, my name ain't on that list, but I assure you that I'm supposed to be here today. Well, what are you trying to tell me? I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, no, Gunny. Now, I realize he thinks I'm Robert. And he don't look like he's getting any happier, so I tell him, I say, hey, look, Gunny, there's a simple explanation here. Look, I have a twin brother that's in 1st Recon Battalion. That's where you're from, right? Oh, yeah, well, you know it is. I said, well, look, Gunny, hold a second. My twin brother's name is Robert, and he's in Bravo Company, right? Oh, wait, whoa, yeah. He starts to stutter him, and I said, hey, look, it's real easy. My brother's in your unit, and I'm a corno in the 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, so it's easy for you to check. Well, I'm going to have to see this for myself. I said, well, that's not a problem, Johnny. This afternoon around 16:30, I'll come over to your place. Just when you get there, see if you can look up Robert. You'll find him there, and tell him that I'll be over around 16:30, and then you can check it out. Well, I get there around 16:30, and I go into one of the barracks I know Robert is built in, and I call, hey, Pimento, you here? And somebody yelled out, hey, you his twin brother? I say, yeah, it's me. Where's Robert at? Oh, he's in the front office. The rest of the guys, they're waiting on you, so go ahead on in. So I walk over to the front office over there, and I walk in, and Robert's standing in the back with a cup of coffee. And when they turn around to look, see, he just walked in. They saw me, and that whole place went into a pandemonium. And I couldn't believe it. The officers and everybody. I can't tell you how long me and Robert had to stand side by side so everybody could take a hard look at each other. Would I cover on, I cover off, we'd stand back to back. Old Getty Sergeant said, hey, I know that you can see the difference here. Look here, this Pimento right here, he's got longer hair than this Pimento over here. Which one are you? And Robert said, oh, that's my brother, boy. I tell you, man, that was a riot. We had a good time. Okay, I'm going to jump quickly to another event. It's still 1957, and Buddy and me had gone into town Friday afternoon on Liberty, and we were short money, so I called home and asked Mom if she would wire me $20. So she wired me the $20, and then, Buddy, we walk over from this really nice cafe. We walk over to Western Union. I collect my $20, and now we're walking back. And we decided to walk down the alley between the Greyhound bus station and another group of buildings. And when we started walking down the alley, we looked up and we saw that there was 5 or 6 other guys walking toward us. So we could tell that at least 3 of them were Marines. So we don't think anything about it, just a bunch of guys crossing in the night. So when they get about 3 feet in front of me, I can see, hey, this ain't going right. So I yelled out, I said, hey, make a hole. Hole. So instead of making a hole, all of them jumped, both of us. And they pushed us both up against the wall there, and I mean, every one of them was trying to get in, and they were swinging right and left. I'm telling you, it was a mess. And then somebody in the crowd hollered, SPs, SPs. So they all split. Well, that left me and Buddy standing there looking at each other. Oh, you hurt? No, you hurt? No, I ain't hurt at all. Did you get a hit? No, I didn't get a hit. There were so many of them trying to get in and get their punches in that they were hitting each other or the wall and back up. Well, me and Buddy now kicked to say the least, and we're certainly not going to let this stand. And there just ain't no way a bunch of civilians are going to attack a couple of Marines and get away with it. So we drive back to the base, and we agree we'll meet Saturday morning over to Robert's unit, and we'll sit down and come up with a plan to where we can get even with those holes. So now it's Saturday morning, and me and Robert and Buddy, we're all over his barracks, and we're coming up with a plan. And what we have to do, we have to make sure that we're not held responsible for anything that goes down. The one thing we don't want is to mess up our military record. So the plan is, Robert gets 4 guys from his outfit, Buddy gets 2 from his outfit, and I get 2 from my outfit. Right? 8 extra guys with the 3 of us makes 11. And the plan is, the 4 of us, me, Robert, Buddy, and his friend, will go in and we'll take the back booth. 2 other guys will go in and they'll take a table on the far side of the room, and all the other 5 will just wait outside, and when the feathers hit the fan, they'll all come charging in. But then we got to make sure that people in there are backing us and not the guys that attack us. And the way we do that, Well, the way we did it was we go in, this is Saturday afternoon, it's around 16:30, 1700, that's 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And sure enough, the back booth is open. So I go in, I sit in the booth on the outside with my back to the wall facing the door. Buddy sits across the table from me, his friend sits on Buddy's left, and Robert is sitting on my right. So now we have to make sure that people in there see that we're just innocent kids, just lonely and lonesome from home, and we're homesick and all that kind. I tell you, if you had been there and seen the act we was putting on, you'd have thrown up. Oh man, we had the waitress doing everything she could to cheer us up, and we were just as friendly as we could be with her. And we even had two older Marines with their wives sitting at a table across from us, turn around, and they was trying to cheer us up. I'm telling you, it was something else. Well, anyway, it's about 1900, 1930, 7 or 7:30 at night, when I couldn't believe it, man. This fat slob and three of his buddies walked in. And the minute he walked in, I started staring at him. I started giving him dagger throws. I could tell he don't know what, he's kind of curious, what the heck is this all about? So they sit down at the far end of the booth, and he sits on the aisle facing me. And the other three guys that are with him, they take their seats. Meanwhile, I'm giving him some dagger throws that you can't believe. I mean, these are just killer looks. But I do it in a way that nobody in there can see it except him and me. Then after a minute or so, when the timing is right, I stand up with my back to the rest of the patrons in there, and I turn my head to the left, and I'm still throwing him them dagger looks. Well, I tell you, they're vicious. And I reach down with my right hand, and I grab my and I start shaking them up and down, up and down, up and down. I still get in the dagger look, and then I turn around to my right and I walk to the back, and there's a telephone hanging on the wall there, so I walk over to it and I turn and facing that telephone, and my back is still to the rest of the cafe or the people that are there. And I turn my head to the left and I'm giving him the dagger stares again. I reach up and I snatch that receiver off the hook with my right hand, and while I'm looking at him, I reach over with my left hand and I just thumbed his dials. I just made a bunch of motions there, spinning that dial around. The whole time I'm staring him right in the face. And then I reach up and I kind of slap that receiver back on that hook, and I turn facing him. Now I know he is not going to sit still for this. Boy, he rears back. And I'm looking down at the floor and I'm walking back, and I don't want nobody to see any kind of a frown on my face. So I go ahead and I sit down, and when I look up, I can see the waitress was serving another table, but she's facing me. So I'm looking at this guy now, except I got this real funny looking grin, this real shy grin on my face, like, oh, what's going on, guy? Look, oh man, I'm telling you. And Robert said, hey, he got up, he's up, Roy. He's coming, he's talking under his bed. He's coming to the face, be cool. I said, Robert, I got it. So he gives this old gorilla walk, side to side walk, and he's got his arms out like Mr. Honcho. I'm telling you, he's Mr. Macho. And he gets to our table, and he turns and he faces me. I'm sitting down and looking up at him. He's looking down at me, and he says, you're me, we'll go outside. You're me, we settle this outside. And I said, you know what, mate? I'm looking at her with this grin on my face. I said, you know, and I was real nice and polite. You know what would make both of us happy? And that is if you were to drop down on your knees right now and start and oh man, when I said that, he hauled off with his left hand, and he come across with a backswing, and he caught me right on the face, just as I was ducking. And at that time, Robert jumped up out of that table, Buddy jumped up out of his feet. I mean, it was one pile drive. His three friends run down there, and I'm telling you, everybody, all the guys outside ran down. The two guys we had at the table run over it, and I'm telling you, the feathers were flying. You could not believe how much damage we did. I'm telling you, it was a riot. Man, there were dishes flying everywhere, breaking all over the floor, stairs and going around. Oh, man. Then somebody hollered, SPs, and I'm telling you, that place cleared out in a heartbeat. The only people left in there was me, Robert, Buddy, his friend, a couple of cooks. The waitress was there, the two Marines and their wives was still there, and a couple other patrons there were standing around. And when the SPs and the MPs came in, I'm telling you, they rushed down there like they were going to a fire. And before we never said a word. And then all of a sudden the waitress starts yelling and screaming, and the two Marines and their wives they all start talking. Hey, these guys didn't do nothing. These guys right here, they weren't doing nothing. They just sitting there minding their own business. And then this guy laying on the floor here, he come walking down, and for no reason at all, he just turned and he punched that guy right there, right in the face. We saw it all. I'm telling you, these guys didn't do nothing. Oh God, I couldn't believe my ears. Well, after a while or so, the two SPs realized there were no Navy personnel involved, so they left, and it was just the two MPs there. So they taking all their notes, writing everything down, I guess for their report or whatever. But anyway, they ended up taking the four of us outside, and we were standing next to the MP truck. And this one MP looked at me and he said, "You know what, guys? I don't believe none of this bull crap that's been going on here. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all of you back on the base. We have your name, your ranks, and your serial number, and the units that all of you are assigned to. And if any of you are caught off base for the rest of this weekend, you are going to go straight to the brig. You understand that? Or it's not a problem. This is not a problem." And as we was climbing into the back of the MP truck, we noticed that the hole that started all this mayhem was being helped out with two of his friends. He was wobbling a little bit. And what had happened, when Robert saw him get ready for that backswing, as soon as he came down, Robert was already out of his seat, and as soon as he hit me, Robert hit him with everything he had in his left temple, and it dropped that hole on the floor immediately. He missed all of the action. Okay, it's still 1957, and I'm going to open up my skeleton closet.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
Okay, now I'm ready to share what my one skeleton is all about. But before I start rattling all of those bones, I have to jump forward all the way to 2011 for it to make any sense as to why any of you are viewing any of this now. So, here I go. One fine day in December 2011, Jeanette was at home watching one of her favorite television shows. And she was sitting in a comfortable armchair that was a rocker. I picked the mail up, and there was a package from Lori Permenter Mustafa. And in this package was a DVD of a memorial in pictures to my twin brother Robert that had passed away some 15 years earlier. Also, she included a hand-printed note. Now, I have posted her note here, but I don't believe it is going to be legible enough to be read with the program that I'm using to make these DVDs. So I will read it aloud. Okay, she starts the note this way. Roy, this is your copy of your brother's life in pictures. This has been an interesting project, to say the least. I can't help but wonder how you can let so many years go by without reaching out to your daughter and son! Exclamation point. If you are interested in them, I do not know much, only that Gene Thorpe passed away earlier this year and had both of your children were given up for adoption. I believe the name of the home Gene went to in Houston was called the Florence Christian, CRININSTON, a home for unwed mothers. If you want to know more, Anne could fill in the blanks. I know time is running out for you to do the right thing, but I sure hope you do. Lies and deception and running away never solves anything. And yet, it is true. You do have two children, and no, neither one died in childbirth. Here's to hoping you will make the effort to find them. I do know this, Robert would never have left them no matter what the circumstances. As the other half of Robert, and that was in quotes, one can hope that now you will remember your past errors in judgment. Signed, Lori. Okay, this is my letter in reply to Lori's letter that she sent me dated 12/22/11. This letter was dated 1 January 2012. Dear Lori, Jeanette and I were surprised to hear from you after you, your two sisters, and your mother severed relationships completely with me and my family some 16 years ago, without leaving any word as to how I could remain in touch with any one of you. However, you have done a wonderful thing with your memorial video to my other half. Robert would have been very proud of you. I also thank you for all the hard effort you must have endured. Lori, when you wait some 54 years to speak to me about my personal life, after already having passed judgment based solely on conversations you have had with others, it leads me to take considerable pause and question the sincerity of your concerns. I would have thought any sincere interest in this matter from anyone not directly involved would have required at minimum a respectful counsel with the only other person having first-hand knowledge and was directly involved. Your complete failure here does not speak well for you, Lori. I also find it curious why it took some 14 years after my other half had to pass away before you, your two sisters, and your mother could find the heart to make your tribute. This is not surprising to me, given the circumstances surrounding you, your two sisters, and your mother. I do not hold you or your two sisters, Lori, responsible for the shameful and unnecessary split between my twin brother's extended family and my own family. It is an unfortunate tragedy, Lori, that you three girls are little more than a victim in a web of deceit and vengeful hate. I have spent several years and some change trying to locate Anne without success. It is as though she has disappeared off this planet. If you have access to Anne, please ask her to call me. My number is at the top of my letterhead. Because Jean has passed away, Anne is the only other person in this universe I care to discuss this issue with. Failing that, Lori, I leave you to believe whatever it takes to keep your conscience intact. Take care, Lori, the other half. Now, my reply to Lori's letter was a return marked no forwarding address. So, go figure. Now, back to that one fine day when Jeanette was watching her favorite TV show. I read Lori's note and I was sitting on the couch across from Jeanette. When I finished reading it, I looked up and I said, "Hey, Jeanette, you're going to find this a very, very interesting little note from Lori." "Oh, yeah? Well, let me see." So I gave it to her, and she was reading it, rocking back and forth, back and forth, until she got to that part where I believe where it said, you so many years without reaching out to your daughter and son, and she stopped rocking. So anyway, she finished reading the letter, and she looked up at me, laid that letter back in her lap, and she said, "Roy, what in the world is this all about?" Now, I had never at any time given the slightest thought of including in this effort to record the life and times of Robert and Roy's life experiences as a set of twins. The thought just never crossed my mind at any time. until I received this note from Lori. Now, a grateful thank you to you, Lori, from me, the other half of Robert. After all, the objective in these videos is to share a real-life adventure without any perfume, powder puffing, or sugar coating. So now it should be crystal clear why we are at this point. Okay, so now it's time for me to jerk that skeleton out of that closet and start rattling some bones. It all starts back in 1957 when Jean Thorpe, Ann's best friend, goes to a motel with her boyfriend. He gets drunk and starts beating up on her. Now she's not happy at all. He either passes out or goes to sleep. And Jean gets up, takes his money out of his wallet, throws his wallet in the toilet, takes all his clothes and his car keys, and goes outside and takes the car that fits those keys. Jean then drives over to Ann Parsons' home, where they sit down and they devise a plan where they're going to go to sunny California. That's where all the life is. That's where all the good action is. So they arrive in California, and Jean and Ann, they drive over to Robert's base. And there, Jean tells Robert that that's her car, and she brought Ann out so that she could be with Robert. So Robert, Jean, and Ann, they go into San Clemente, California. That's just right outside my camp gate. And they rent an apartment. And they rent the apartment in San Clemente rather than Oceanside because the rent was cheaper and gas at the time was about 25-30 cents a gallon, so gas was not a problem. So now Robert and Ann, they rent a 2-bedroom apartment, and Jean is going to live with them for a while. Now Robert's driving Jean's car to and from base. And after a couple of weeks, I guess it wasn't too long, Robert shows up at his base, and there are 2 FBI agents there waiting for him. Well, let me tell you, the feathers hit the fan then, because Robert was put on immediate detention and restriction while the FBI investigated a federal auto theft crime. Now, Robert learns that what actually happened was that Jean had stolen the car and had actually deceived Robert into thinking that it was her car. Well, after a week or so of investigation, Robert is finally cleared of all involvement. So he's back in good graces with the Marine Corps. And now Ann and Jean Thorpe are arrested, and they are in the Los Angeles County Jail. Ann's mother flies out immediately and goes down to the jail, and they release Ann into her mother's custody without bail. So about a month later, or some time passes, and Ann, her mom, and Jean Thorpe all appear in a Los Angeles federal court for their hearing. When the judge realizes that Ann is present with her mom and that she was released from a federal charge without bail, she's beside herself. She has a short discussion with the prosecutors, turns around, looks at Ann, looks at Jean Thorpe, looks at Ann's mom, and says, slams her little mallet down and said, "This case is dismissed." Oh man. Both Jean and Ann walked out of that court building without a scratch. Unbelievable. Well, after realizing that they had just dodged a huge silver bullet, both Jean and Ann, they take jobs in San Clemente there at different cafes, and the one that Jean works at is really a nice cafe. So this goes on for, I don't know, about a month, maybe 2 months, and then one day Robert stops by my camp. He has to pass it right by and just get into the apartment. So he stops by and we have a short conversation, and he's asking me, he's telling me that Ann wanted him to ask me to come and meet her best girlfriend, Jean Thorpe. So I asked Robert, I said, "Is this the same girl that stole her boyfriend's car?" "Oh, Roy, no, she's not like that at all. I mean, yeah, she took his car and all that, but she's a nice, sweet girl. You need to meet her for yourself, you'll see." So anyway, I go over there. Now, it's a Friday afternoon, and it's getting kind of late. So I tell Robert, I said, man, I'm headed back to the base. He said, oh, no, man, you don't need to go back to the base. Sleep on the couch over there. So, okay, I sleep on the couch that night. And then the following day on Saturday, Buddy drops by, picks me up, and then we head on into Pasadena to pull some of the plush liberty you could ever want to have. And I only spend weekends off the base. That's usually a Friday and a Saturday. And I'm always back on base asleep by Sunday night. Well, this goes on for about 3 or 4 Friday afternoons. And then one Friday, she asked me if I was going into Pasadena with Buddy tomorrow. And I said, no, man, Buddy's got duty tomorrow, so I'm stuck here, so I'll probably head back to the base. And after Robert and Ann go to bed, Jean turns to me and says, Roy, would you like to sleep in my bed tonight? And I looked at her and I said, no, I wouldn't. Oh, man. When I said that, her eyes got big, and her mouth dropped open a little bit. And she said, are you gay? I said, gay? No, it ain't got nothing to do with being gay. Whoa, what's the problem? Oh, man. I said, Jean, the problem is I don't want to get married. And man, when I said that, I saw another side of her. She got a bit angry, and one thing led to another. We ended up in an argument, and I ended up leaving that night, hitchhiking back to the base. So this goes on for, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks or so, where I'm back to pulling liberty there in Pasadena. And then Robert stops by one Friday afternoon, and he talks me into going back and talking to Jean again, that, you know, she understands where I'm coming from and so forth. So, okay, I'll go back. So I go back that Friday night, and we have a long conversation. Well, during that conversation, I tell Jean, look, if we start sharing the bed, sleeping together, I says, you will end up pregnant, and I'll have no other choice but to marry you, and I don't want to get married that way. Well, man, when I said that, she got upset all over again. We had another argument, and I ended up hitchhiking back to the base again that Friday night. Missed another weekend of liberty in Pasadena. Okay, so the following Friday, Robert stops by my camp again, and we have a long conversation, and he talks me into going back again. And Jean is, you know, she feels bad about the way she got upset, and she can work things out. So I go back, and sure enough, as fate would have it, we start sleeping together. Now, this goes on for probably 2 months. Every Friday, I'd go over there, and Friday night, Saturday, and Saturday night, I would go over there, and we would share the bed, and then Sunday, I'd get up and hitchhike back to the base. So one Friday afternoon, I go over there, and I stop in at the cafe where Jean works, and I don't see her, so I asked one of the other waitresses there that knew her. I said, hey, where's Jean? She's on vacation. What, vacation? Oh, okay. Yeah, her and so-and-so and so-and-so, they took off and went to Tijuana. They're going to be down there for 4 or 5 days. I looked at it and I go, oh, no kidding. Well, okay. So now I get to hitchhike back to the base, and I have already missed my Liberty call with Buddy. So now, after that, Buddy and I just continue to make our regular Liberty calls when we have Liberty on the weekends to Pasadena. And I forget about Gene Thorpe. So this goes on probably about, I don't know, a couple, 3 months. Then one day I get a message, hey, Pimenta, call operator 99. Okay, so I call operator 99. Oh, just a minute, sir, I connect you with your party. So a few minutes, a girl answers the phone, hello. And I could tell she'd been crying, and it was Gene Thorpe. And I said, hey, Gene, what's the matter with you? What's the problem? She said, I'm pregnant, Roy, and you're the daddy now, and you need to marry me. Oh, man, when I heard that, my blood vessels on the side of my neck nearly burst. Well, we eventually hung up, and I agreed to meet with her the following Friday. So between the time I had that conversation and Friday rolled around, I had calmed down a lot. So I go over and have a conversation with Jean on a Friday afternoon, and I sit down with her, and I'm calm and polite. And I said, Jean, I want you to stop me when I'm wrong. I said, okay, I'll stop you. I said, well, a couple of months back, you and 2 other Marines take a trip to Tijuana, and you spend 3 or 4 days down there, right? Well, right, but don't you think I know who the father is? I said, Jean, hold it. That has nothing to do with it right now. You come back and 3 months later you're telling me you're pregnant and that I'm the dad and you want me to marry you. He's like, well, yeah, that's the way it is, Roy. I said, well, no, it ain't. I stood up and said, look, Gene, there ain't no way on this earth I will ever marry you. So forget it. I turned around and left. Thinking that that was the end of that, I get back on my base and back into my regular routine. And it was about maybe not quite a week, maybe 3 or 4 days later, I get another message. Hey, Permenter, call operator 88. So I go call operator 88, thinking, what the heck is this all about? And the operator, just a minute, sir, I'll connect you with your party. So, after a minute or so, a woman answers the phone, and I say, hello, and she said, is this Roy? And I said, yes, it is. Mom, what's up? She said, Roy, what kind of a mess have you got yourself into out there, boy? I said, Mom, hold it, slow down. What mess are you talking about? Don't you deny what kind of mess you're talking about. I'm talking about. You know what kind of mess you're in. I just got through talking to Jean Thorpe. She says she's pregnant and that you're the dad. Oh, Mom, stop, hold it, slow down. Look, Mom, there ain't no way I'm going to ever marry that girl, so forget it. Well, Roy, if it's your child, you got to do the right thing. And Mom, hold it. This has nothing to do with doing the right thing, Mom. I cannot discuss the reasons why I will not marry her. You're just going to have to go with me on this one, Mom. Well, I told Jean that I could not make you do something you didn't want to do. So we hung up, and I'm thinking, well, that's the end of that. The very next day, I get another message. Hey, Permenter, report to the chaplain's office now. Well, I'm thinking, holy cow, the chaplain, I don't even know where his church is. So what the heck does he want to see me about? So I'm starting to walk over there, and my mind is just racing in all sorts of directions. Holy cow, Robert must be hurt. Oh man, I would have known other ways. Oh, Mom and Dad, somebody's sick at home. And I start double timing over there. My mind was really running in wild circles. So I walk in, and there's a real cute-looking WM sitting there behind her desk, and I tell her who I am, and she says, well, Permenter, go right on in. The chaplain's expecting you. So I go over and tap on the door, and come on in. I open the door, and the first face I see is the chaplain. He's sitting behind his desk looking straight at me. There's a high-back chair in front of him, and I can't really see if anybody's in it or not. And he says, well, come on in, Roy. And when he said that, Jean is sitting in that chair. She leans over, turns around and looks, and I can see Jean. And I can tell, man, that she has just been crying buckets of tears. Her eyes are all red and puffed up. And I'm thinking, oh no, now what? So I walk over, and the chaplain says, have a seat, Roy. And I said, no, thank you, sir. I'm fine. And I'm standing on Jean's left, right beside her. And the chaplain goes through everything Jean has told him. And he looks up and asks me, well, what do you think, Roy? And I said, look, chaplain, let me speak to Jean for a second. So I tapped her on the shoulder, and I looked down at her, and she looked up, and I said, Jean, do you want to tell the chaplain why I'm refusing to marry you, or do you want me to tell him? And when I said that, she just broke down in a whole bunch of tears. And I looked back at the chaplain, and I said, sir, there's no way I'm going to marry Jean. I then asked him if that would be all, sir. Well, he paused for a moment, and then he looked up at Jean. He said, Jean, I'm very sorry, but I cannot force this marriage. And then he went on to explain what marriage is all about. And then I asked him again, would that be all, sir? And he looked up and said, yes, Roy, you can leave now. Thank you very much. And that was the last time that Jean and I ever slept together. So where the second child come from, I have no idea. Now, had there been DNA testing in those days that confirmed I was the dad, I can only say my life would have been completely different. Okay, I'm going to jump right into 1958. So one night I'm hanging out at Princess Drive-In, parked up next to the back fence. And I see a car drive in and park under the canopy on the very last stall where I could see him real clearly. And the car hop comes over, waits on him, and then a few minutes later, this guy gets out. And when he does, man, this guy looks like he's 10 feet tall. So I look at him and I'm thinking, you know what, man, if I get in trouble, I'd like to have that guy on my side. So I walk over to his car and I says, "Hey, what's happening? What's happening, guy?" He said, "Oh, nothing much." I said, "Well, look, I just saw you crawl out of this car, and I was just thinking to myself, man, if I get in trouble, I kind of sort of like to have you on my side. What do you think?" And he just laughed. He said, "Well, that sounds like a pretty good deal to me." So we introduced ourselves, and that was Kenneth Quinn, and we became very good friends at that time. So one night, Kenneth was driving my 57 Oldsmobile down Main Street. It was about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and this car pulled up alongside of us and challenged us for some reason. So now I'm thinking this looks like it might be trouble, so I began to look around and I found an old water neck that I had taken off of the motor earlier, laying in the floorboard. So I picked that little guy up and I was ready to go to Fist City. So we followed them on out to North Main at the A&W Drive-In, and there were two guys in the other car, and there was me and Kenneth in my car. And when they got there, the driver of the other car, he jumped out, and he was about, I don't know, 6'2", 6'3", he's about the same height as Kenneth, and they went to Fist City in a hurry. So I go around and I try to get the other guy that's in the car out, and he won't get out. So I had that water neck in my hand, and it fit perfect. And I looked over and I saw Kenneth and this other guy, boy, they was really going after it. So I ran around the car and ran up behind this guy that Kenneth was tangling with, and I jumped up as high as I could, and I hit that guy with everything I had, man, and he went splat right. I mean, he hit that ground right then. And I said, "Oh, come on, Kenneth, let's." So we got in there and we were burning. Kenneth was burning rubber like you can't believe it. Just as he turned onto the street, I looked back, and that guy was crawling up off the pavement in a car hopping, and his buddy was over there trying to help him up off the ground. Well, old Kenneth definitely had more than I did. He had an event, he was talking about an event he had planned for the Foley's building downtown Houston, but I don't have enough cojones to share that with you today. So, as old Mickey Blue Eyes said, forget about it. Now, all of this happened before I had met Jeanette and before Kenneth had married Barbara. And that was the last time me and Kenneth ever went out looking for entertainment. Robert, Ann, me, Kenneth, and Barbara were all good friends. It was Ann that introduced Jeanette to me. Jeanette and Barbara grew up playing together as kids. Later on, after we were all married, Kenneth and Barbara, Robert, me, and Jeanette, we all bought property in Galveston, Texas for a little fun in the sun later on. When Robert, Jeanette, and me moved to California, it was Kenneth and Barbara that we gave our property we had bought in Galveston to. Okay, now, later on, Robert, Jeanette, and me had bought 3 lots in Henderson, Nevada on a beautiful hillside overlooking the Vegas Strip. And man, it was a sight to see. That was supposed to be our retirement adventure experience. Okay, now, one day I had shoved the gas pedal on my Olds 88 all the way down to the tie rods, and man, the rear of that 88 was doing everything it could to kiss the front tires. And all of a sudden, man, the rear section of that drive shaft come flying up to the rear floor. It come flying up to the rear floorboard between the back seat and the front seat. Man, oh man, what a mess that was. Well, I sold that 88 as is to Kenneth for a whopping 35 big ones. Now, looking back over some 50 years, you begin to realize the friendship between 4 of these good friends had died a slow death. And the most unbelievable part is that none of these 4 friends ever did anything or said anything to each other that would cause the death of their friendship. Well, that's all the time I have for part 3. So remember this, today is the first day of the rest of your life. So make it a day to remember.
Oh, yes, I know. I'd never make that same mistake again. Looking back over my deeds, I can see signs a wise man heeds. And if I just had the chance, I'd never make that same mistake again. Once my cup was overflowing, but I gave nothing in return. Now I can't begin to tell you what a lesson